My mother confessed she'd been lying about my paternity for 30 years. It changed how I saw my whole family. I'm 32M. Found out 3 weeks ago that the man I've called dad my entire life isn't actually my biological father. And my mother's been hiding this for 3 decades. It started with a stupid DNA test. One of those ancestry kits my sister got me for Christmas. I did it mostly for fun. Wanted to see what percentage Irish and German I actually was. Got my results back before the holidays were over. The results showed some distant cousins I'd never heard of. No big deal. But one of them reached out through the app's messaging system. Said they matched with me as a half-sibling, which was weird because I don't have any half-siblings. My parents have been married 35 years. I'm their only kid besides my sister, who's my full sister. I messaged back asking if they were sure about the match. They sent a screenshot showing we shared about 25% DNA. That's half-sibling level, not cousin level. I scrolled through the explanation they provided. It all made biological sense. We had to share a parent. No other explanation worked. I looked at my sister's results to compare. We shared about 50% DNA, which is correct for full siblings. But this random person shared 25% with me. That doesn't happen unless we have a parent in common. I called my sister that night, asked her to come over. Something in my voice made her come immediately. When she arrived, I showed her everything on my laptop. The DNA match, the percentage, the person's family tree showing their parents and siblings. She stared at the screen for a long time without saying anything. Finally, she asked if I told mom and dad. I said no, why would I? She got quiet, really quiet, said there might be an explanation. I asked what kind of explanation you'd have for a half-sibling appearing out of nowhere. My sister went pale. She walked to the kitchen and sat down hard. Asked me to sit, said she couldn't tell me everything but that I needed to talk to mom, that this was serious and not her place to explain. I knew something was deeply wrong then. My sister would never keep a secret like that unless it was catastrophic. I called my mom that night. Asked if we could talk about something important. She said, of course. I told her about the DNA match, about the half-sibling situation. I could hear her breathing change on the phone. She asked me to come over to the house, that this wasn't something to discuss on the phone, that I needed to hear this in person. She said dad was going to be out with a friend that evening, and we could talk privately. I drove over immediately. The sun was setting. Everything felt surreal. My mom was waiting in the kitchen. She looked like she hadn't slept in years. Hair pulled back. No makeup, just sitting at the table staring at nothing. She took a deep breath and told me everything. I'm not the biological son of the man I called dad my entire life. My biological father is someone named Robert. She had an affair with him about 32 years ago. It was a one-time thing. She got pregnant. Didn't know for sure who the father was at first because she was sleeping with both my dad and Robert at the time. My dad wanted to stay with her regardless. Wanted to raise me as his own. They made a decision together to never tell me. To never tell anyone. My sister found out when she was 16 because she overheard them arguing about it in the garage. She'd been carrying that knowledge for 16 years. Alone, with no one to talk to. I asked how long this has been going on. She said since before I was born, that my entire life has been built on this secret. Every birthday, every holiday, every moment where they looked me in the eye and lied. I asked why they never told me. She said they were trying to protect me, trying to protect themselves, said they didn't want me to feel confused about my identity, said they didn't want me to have a complicated relationship with the man who raised me, said they wanted to avoid family drama. So instead they lied for 32 years. Every single day, every conversation, every memory I have with my family has this massive lie underneath it. I asked who Robert is. She said he's someone from her past. Someone she hasn't seen since finding out she was pregnant. She said he never knew about the pregnancy, that she'd ended things before telling him anything. Said he got married after that, has other kids, a whole separate life. That he has no idea I exist. I left without saying anything else. Didn't know what else there was to say. Just left. I drove around for hours, stopped at a bar at 11 p.m. on a weeknight, and had several drinks. Tried to process the fact that my entire life was built on a lie. Every memory felt tainted now. Every interaction with my parents felt like performance. Called my sister around midnight. She answered immediately like she'd been waiting for my call. Asked if I'd talk to mom. I said yes. She started crying immediately. Said she was sorry, that she wanted to tell me so many times, that keeping the secret had been one of the hardest things she'd ever done. I asked how she lived with knowing something this huge for 16 years. She said she didn't, that it ate at her constantly, that she'd bring it up to mom every couple years and mom would cry and beg her not to tell me, that she'd felt guilty every single day. I went back to my apartment, didn't sleep, just sat in the dark thinking about everything. My dad, the man who raised me, called the next morning at 8 a.m. I almost didn't answer, but I did. He asked if I was okay. I said no. He asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. I said okay. We met at a coffee shop 2 hours later. He looked like he hadn't slept either, gray under his eyes, moving slowly like he was physically aged by this. He said he loves me, that regardless of biology, I'm his son, that he chose me, that everything he's done for me, he did because he wanted to, not out of obligation, out of love. I asked why they never told me. He said they were trying to protect me, that they thought knowing would confuse me, make me question who I am, make me resent them for the lie. I said I'm confused now anyway, confused and angry and betrayed. He didn't argue, just said he understood, that he'd do things differently if he could go back, that keeping the secret was a mistake, but that his love for me isn't a mistake. That's the only truth in all of this, the only thing that's real. I asked about Robert. He said he didn't know much, that your mom ended things with him before telling him about the pregnancy, that he's never tried to contact any of you, that as far as he knows, Robert doesn't even know I exist. I asked if I was allowed to try to find him. He paused for a long time, then said yes, that it was my choice, that he hoped I'd give myself time before doing anything, but that ultimately it was my decision to make. That conversation lasted 3 hours. We didn't solve anything, didn't fix the lie, but at least we talked about it. I went back to work that Friday and couldn't focus. Kept thinking about the fact that I have a biological father out there somewhere. Someone I share 50% of my DNA with. Someone who doesn't know I exist. That night, I tried to find him online. Wasn't hard. Found his Facebook pretty quickly. Robert Patterson, age 60, lives in Colorado, looks nothing like me, has completely different features, different coloring, different build. I scrolled through his photos, pictures of his kids, his grandkids, Easter dinners, family vacations. He's got this whole life that has nothing to do with me. This whole family tree that I'm not part of. I didn't reach out, just looked at his profile for hours. Tried to see if there was anything familiar, any resemblance, any connection, but there was nothing. He's a stranger, a biological stranger. My sister came over on Sunday. We hadn't spoken since I found out. She was crying before she even sat down on my couch. She said she was sorry, that she'd wanted to tell me so many times, that carrying this secret had been one of the hardest things she'd ever done, that mom and dad had made her promise not to tell me, that she felt guilty every single day for 16 years. I asked why she didn't tell me anyway. She said mom and dad begged her not to, that they said it would hurt me more than help me, that they were trying to protect me, that they'd threatened to cut her off if she told. I said they were trying to protect themselves, try to avoid the discomfort of dealing with the truth. She didn't argue, just cried and said she agreed. We talked for hours. She told me everything she knew about the arguments between mom and dad about telling me, about mom crying for hours saying she couldn't live with a lie, about dad insisting the secret was necessary to protect the family. She told me she'd been resentful about it, that she'd had friends over and couldn't fully relax because she was carrying this massive secret, that she couldn't talk about her own family without lying. She asked if I was going to reach out to Robert. I said I didn't know. She said if I did, she wanted to know, that she was curious about her biological uncle too, that she felt like she should know him, that she'd been thinking about him for 16 years because of knowing the truth about him. I told my girlfriend about all of this on Monday night. We've been dating for 2 years. We lived together. She deserved to know why I was falling apart. She listened to the whole story without interrupting. Then she asked what I wanted to do. I said I didn't know, that I felt like I had to do something, but I also wanted to do nothing. She said there's no right answer, that finding out your parentage is traumatic even in normal situations, that the lies made it worse. She said I needed to decide what would bring me peace, not what would hurt my parents, not what would satisfy my curiosity, but what would actually help me move forward. I spent the next week thinking about that, about what peace would look like. The man who raised me will always be my dad. Biology doesn't change that, but Robert is also my biological father, and maybe I needed to know him. Maybe that was the only way to accept this reality. I decided to write a letter, not to send immediately, just to get my feelings out. Wrote to Robert about who I am, about how I found out about him through a DNA test, about my life and my family, and my confusion about having a biological father I didn't know about. I didn't mail it, just kept it in my desk drawer, but writing it helped, made it feel more real somehow. Update, 2 weeks later. I've been thinking about this constantly. Can't focus on anything else. Work is suffering. My relationship with my girlfriend is suffering. My sister keeps texting asking if I've decided to reach out. My parents keep calling wanting to talk about it more. Everything is suffering under the weight of this secret. My girlfriend finally said something last night. Said I can't live in limbo forever. That I need to either reach out to Robert or let it go and move forward. That continuing to live in this state of limbo is going to destroy our relationship. I know she's right, but I'm terrified. If I reach out to Robert, everything changes. His life becomes complicated. My life becomes more complicated. I create a situation that can't be undone. I walk into this man's life as a complete shock and potentially destroy his family. If I don't reach out, I'm living with questions forever, wondering about this whole other side of my family, wondering what he'd think if he knew about me, wondering if I have siblings I could have known, wondering if there are medical things I should know about from his side of the family. My sister texted asking if I decided anything. I said no. She said she thinks I should reach out, that she wants to know her biological uncle. She said keeping the secret is what hurt us, that telling the truth might hurt differently, but at least it's honest. I thought about that distinction, about the difference between protective lies and just lies. My parents lied to protect me, or so they claimed, but really they lied to protect themselves from the discomfort of truth, from having to answer difficult questions. My sister's been living with the knowledge and the burden of keeping the secret. She's suffered because of their lie. I've suffered now because of their lie. How was that protection? Update. I contacted Robert. I did it, sent him a message through Facebook, kept it simple, just said I was 32, that I believe we might be biologically related, that a DNA test had shown we shared 25% DNA, that I'd like to talk if he was open to it, that I understood if he wasn't. I didn't expect a response. Figured he'd ignore it or think it was a scam or a weird prank. He responded within an hour, said he was confused but open to talking, asked me to call him, gave me his phone number, texted me separately asking if this was serious or some kind of joke. I called that evening. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely dial. He answered on the second ring, sounded cautious, asked who I was and what this was about. I told him everything, told him about the DNA test, about finding out that my mom had an affair with him 32 years ago, about finding out he's my biological father, about my parents deciding to keep it secret. He went completely silent. I thought he'd hung up. Then he said he remembered my mom, that they'd dated briefly, that she'd ended things suddenly with no explanation, that he'd been hurt at the time but moved on, that he'd never known she was pregnant. I said that was the situation, that my mom never told him, that my parents decided to keep it secret and raise me without him ever knowing I existed. He asked if I wanted to meet in person, said this was too much to process over the phone. I said yes, that I wanted to meet him. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our states, set it for the following Saturday. He asked if I wanted to bring anyone. I said I was bringing my girlfriend for support. He said he might bring his wife, that his wife should know about this before he met me. Final update. After meeting Robert, I met my biological father on a Saturday morning at a coffee shop between our cities, sat across from him. He looked exactly like I expected him to look now, older than his photos, more tired, real in a way photos aren't. His wife sat at a nearby table, giving us privacy, but being present in case we needed support. We didn't know what to say at first, just stared at each other awkwardly. Then he said I have his sister's eyes, said he could see it now, that he was looking for it, said he could see the resemblance in my jawline, in the way I held my shoulders. We talked for 4 hours. We ordered coffee multiple times. The staff left us alone. He told me about his life, about meeting his wife 2 years after my mom ended things, about having 3 kids, about becoming a grandfather young, about his job, about his hobbies, about the small details that make up a life. I told him about my life, about growing up, about the man who raised me, about my sister, about my girlfriend, about my job, about finding out the truth. He asked if I was angry. I said yes, not at him and my parents for the lie, at the situation, but not at him personally. He didn't create this. He didn't know about me. He said he was sorry he didn't know, said he would have wanted to know, that things would have been different. I asked him what that meant. He said he doesn't know exactly, but different. He said he would have wanted to be part of my life, that knowing about me would have changed the trajectory of his family, that he has regrets about not knowing. He asked if I wanted to stay in contact. I said I didn't know, that this was all very new and shocking, and I needed time to figure out how I felt about having a biological father suddenly in my life. He said he understood, gave me his phone number again, even though I already had it, said whenever I was ready to talk, he'd be there, said he wasn't going anywhere. I gave my sister his contact information that night. She reached out to him within 24 hours. They've been texting regularly now. She says it's weird but also comforting to have that connection. My parents asked me not to talk about this with extended family. I said I couldn't make that promise. That's my truth, and I get to decide who knows about it. My mom cried. My dad looked resigned but didn't argue. I've been processing this for 3 weeks now. Robert and I text occasionally. Nothing deep, just regular updates about life. How work's going, what we're eating for dinner, small talk that builds towards something bigger. My girlfriend says I seem calmer than I did. I said I do feel different, not better necessarily, just different, like I've accepted this as my life now, like I'm no longer fighting against the reality of it. My sister's become closer with Robert. Apparently he's interested in knowing his niece. They've talked about meeting in person soon. She says she's excited and terrified and hopeful all at the same time. I'm not ready for big family gatherings yet. Not ready to introduce Robert as my biological father to everyone. Not ready to watch my parents deal with the consequences of their lie becoming public knowledge. But I'm not running from it either. I'm just taking it day by day, accepting this new reality, trying to figure out what it means for my identity and my relationships. The man who raised me is still my dad. Biology doesn't change 32 years of relationship, but Robert is also my father, and I'm learning to hold both truths at the same time without one canceling out the other. It's complicated, it's uncomfortable, but it's honest. And after 32 years of lies, honest feels like the only way forward.